Speakers and reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Everyone knows what that theme song means. It means it is time, for Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by our good friends over at Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin, Anthony Hartwig, alongside Ty Bartell on a Friday. Like every Friday, it is football preview. We're going to go through every matchup that involves one of our YSN schools between tonight and tomorrow. We're going to preview it. We're going to go on to our detailed analysis of what we think is going to happen for each game. Not our picks. Reminder that our picks and all of YSN's picks will be revealed on the Power Hour a little bit later at 3 to 4. But our opinions on these games and breaking down the matchups is what we like to do here on Running Point on Friday afternoons. The comment section is up, so while we're talking, if you want to share your thoughts, maybe we don't discourage picks in the comments. If you want to make a pick, feel free to do so in the comment section. We would love to hear from you. Ty, it's been a long week. I mean, we haven't seen you since Monday. How you been doing? You've been putting in some work.
I've been at a volleyball match every single night since Monday, though, too. So, seen some fair share of good volleyball teams throughout the area and some good matchups that we've seen. I've been in Garfield. I've been in Fitch. So, it's been a fun few days.
What you saw was Dawson Jordan just break her own record again.
Yeah, 33 kills
like
was for that. And
I feel like you're holding up like a Wile E. Coyote sign that says kind of redundant, isn't it?
44 is the count for her to have the all-time kills record at Austintown Fitch High School. And she would need only 11
was that
more
after the Louisville game, or was that after last night?
That's after last night.
Okay.
And then she would need 11 more than that, so 55 if my math's correct, to get 1,000, be the first and only person to have 1,000 kills in a career at Austintown Fitch.
When because she's going to hit that.
Yeah.
When she does, we're gonna have to do some research and see how many players in the state. Well, I know Abby Householder did it last year, but 1,000 kills is something that you just don't see too often. You see 1,000 assists a little bit more often because you can get assists from hitting it to any hitter. But you don't see 1,000 kills too often. So I gotta imagine that it's got to be like prestigious company in the state of Ohio to get 1,000 kills.
I would say so. I mean, it's not something like you said that happens too often. So to get to be a part of 1,000 kills club, I mean, it just shows that you were able to put in a ton of work on that volleyball court. And another thing I also want to mention too. Riley Simon's currently at 436 assists. I believe 565 is the season record at Fitch. So Riley Simon's only about 130 off of that as well.
It's about 38 per.
Yeah. So she has a chance to
sounds like a big number, but really it's not.
She has a chance to do it. And also, I also want to highlight too, last night, Kylie Folkwine, 11 aces behind the service line. She now has 34 on the season.
What was Leskovac's record? 15?
15, yeah. 72 in a season for Leskovac. Folkwine's now at 34. She had 17 in the last 2 days after having 17 in the previous last few games. Tell you what, man, I don't know if you probably would know the terminology way better than I would, but like her serve is almost kind of like a curveball where it is like 12-6 movement. It has so much late drop, and she is placing
it jump serve. And he gets on top of it. And it's not a float serve. Float serve is kind of knuckleball all around the place, but those hard serves that kind of move like almost a slider a little bit in
I use
baseball.
I use baseball softball terminology for the movement
And
of
you
the
don't
ball.
get a respect for that unless you're behind the play. Like you
Yeah.
don't from the side, you can't see how it's moving.
Yeah, and I mean she definitely has added something to her repertoire because she's got 17 aces in the last 2 games, 11 last night for Folk One. So this team's just clicking. Has a lot of young talent, freshmen that are really coming up big for the Falcons in this season.
All the volleyball recaps from last night can be found at ysnlive.com. We just put up a couple more from Western Reserve, Garfield, and the Austin Town Fitch game. A bunch from last night as well that we got to put up last night. So head over to ysnlive.com for all your volleyball recaps from the night before. There's also a couple of golf ones and I think one soccer one that we were able to get last night as well. Some games getting moved because of weather on Wednesday. But without further ado, let's get to the spotlight of Friday, which is of course football. It's the best night in town, and we start like we do every week with the first game on our list, which is just in alphabetical order based on the away team, and it is a really good Alliance team coming to Salem.
I'm interested to see how this one plays out because this is an Alliance team that has shown they have really improved over the last few years, and they're coming back with another solid squad this year. Quakers, though, got that field goal win, and they needed it too because they were at risk of dropping 2 in a row, and it would have been a questionable, I guess, start first half of the season then for the Quakers. People would have their questions, but Quakers now sit at 3-2. A lot better looking than 2-3 at 5 games through, but this is a kind of fringe game as well. You want to get yourself 4-2, dropping back to 3-3. Doesn't hurt you that much, but it's going to hurt a little bit as far as where you're going to get ranked in those, and you might not be able to get yourself back into a home matchup in time. But this is a big matchup too. EBC opens up conference play as well, and this is a great matchup as well, considering what the Aviators have been able to do. They've looked solid in recent weeks, and I expect another good football matchup leading off. What a great game too, Quakers Aviators.
So I think a lot of people look at this game and they look at the last couple of weeks' scores. And they automatically think, well, Alliance has got to be the favorite, right? Because they saw Salem struggle against Canton Central Catholic and lose by 4. And then they saw Alliance beat up Kansas Central Catholic last week. And that's automatically making people say, well, boom, Alliance is a better team. We joke about that kind of stuff like, hey, I beat this team who beat this team, therefore I'm better than that team. It's not how football really works in reality. It could just be, I didn't watch this game, so I don't know, but it could just be Alliance matched up better. It could have been that Kansas Central Catholic just didn't show up that night, didn't play as well as they did against Salem. There could have been a multitude of variables on why Alliance's score against Kansas Central Catholic was dramatically different than Salem's. And it doesn't necessarily mean that Alliance is going to come into Salem and do the same thing just because Salem lost to a team that Alliance really handled pretty well. I mean, it's easy to say that, but it's not necessarily the case.
No, and if you want to also look at scores, I mean, yeah, East Liverpool lost to what? Salem 38-6, and then Beaver Local beat them 59-0. But then you look at
Salem beat Beaver Local.
Yeah, so like I mean, football. You're exactly right, and it's all about matchups. So you can look at it, and there's definitely some value to it to look at similar opponents and how each of you played against similar opponents. But like you said, the players that are on the field at that exact time aren't necessarily always the same for every play. How the plays develop aren't necessarily always the same. The game plan isn't always the same from that likewise opponent. So there's definitely variables that you have to take into account. But there is some things to be taken away from it. But I think all in all, this is going to be a great matchup. It's a conference matchup. It's the opening of a conference matchup.
Here's one thing that Canton Central Catholic didn't have that Salem does: conference dominance on the line. Because this game features one of 2 of 4 teams that sit with a 1-loss record going into EBC play, with West Branch, Carrollton, Alliance, and Salem all sitting at 4-1 after 5 weeks.
Salem too is thinking about that 27-21 loss in overtime at the Aviators hangar last year, right? And to have this at home in front of the Quaker crowd, it's going to be a tough one for Alliance. I know Alliance looked good. I know Alliance is coming with a good football team. It's going to be a tough one to try to go into Quaker country and come away with a win.
And there were some people out there that said, well, Salem should have ran away with the game last week. They're just not playing well right now. They won, but they escaped. Like, I think they only say that because of what Ursuline did to Padua Franciscan, not necessarily the deep dive into the film of Padua Franciscan to know that's a pretty solid football program, despite what Ursuline was able to do to them earlier on in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, like you said, it's all about matchups. Look at
Right.
Canfield's offense. Canfield's offense was rolling before they met Cheney, too. It depends on who you meet. It also depends on when you meet them in the season as well. That has a very big factor in it as well. When teams are healthy, how many guys are healthy, who's on the field at the time. Yeah, all goes into account.
All season, Salem has been having 27-21 in their locker room. I'm sure against the Lions. They're ready for this game. They're going to be amped up. They're probably going to get off to a fast start. I would be surprised if Salem wasn't the team that didn't score first in this game. Doesn't mean they're going to win, but I think they're going to come out with a lot of intensity in the first couple drives. Now, they have to sustain that because, as all the football analysis analysts will tell you, emotion can only take you so far, right? Eventually, football kind of works its way into the grand scheme of things. But emotion will take you, maybe a quarter and a half of the way. And if Salem can ride that, emotion into a sizable lead, then maybe they can pull off the victory.
They very well could. And you know what? For Salem, too, they got 3 more home games this season, and it's the next 3 weeks before they finish out the season at Marlington, at Westbridge. So they got home against Alliance, Minerva, and Carrollton. And for Salem going into this EBC, none of these teams in the EBC having played each other yet, it's a chance for Salem to get themselves out in front. And this is going to be a tough game. Minerva might be a chance for Salem to pick up more of an easier win, but you can never overlook the Lions, and Carrollton's always tough as well. So this is a home slate, the last home slate for Salem of the season, where you're going to need to pick up some wins.
Well, we'll be watching the rest of the EBC too, because like I said, Carrollton's 4-1 right now. Alliance is 4-1, Salem is 4-1, West Branch 4-1. So you got 4 teams sitting at the top at the start of EBC play.
So I mean,
it's going to work itself out. They're going to beat each other up.
Gotta give. Someone's got to lose.
You look at the next game on our slate, Ty. It is yourself, and I just heard off the air that Anthony Romo is making the trip with you to Massillon, Washington.
Yeah, I got the best.
Fitz travels to that glorious stadium up in Massillon to take on the Tigers.
Yeah, I got the best Romo in the business joining me in the press box tonight. I don't care what anybody says. Anthony Romo going to go down to Paul Brown Tiger Stadium with me to call this game, and I'm really excited because first and foremost, it's my first time as well going to Paul Brown Tiger Stadium, so I'm excited to just be a part of that atmosphere and just to get to experience that press box. And I mean, just one of the oldest football programs too in the state of Ohio to go along with it. But this, along with being a special moment for us too, it's also going to be a great matchup for Austintown. And this, talking with Anthony Romo last night in a conversation I was having with him, and we were talking and shooting about this game, I was saying the reason why I've been so kind of like hesitant to put Fitch and number 1 on the power rankings is because of this game. This was the game that I've kind of been looking at all season for the Falcons, because I know people have had their questions with these out-of-state teams and some of these matchups, right? This was kind of the game that I've had circled where I wanted to see how Fitch performed against Massillon, Washington, because this was a Massillon, Washington team that came into Austintown last year and was able to get a big victory late, took all the steam away from Fitch, had some big turnovers late, and was able to get a huge victory. I know Fitch is thinking about that loss last year and how it played out. They wanted it to change things up. They have Jamel James, DJ Williams healthy this year. I think it's going to be a very fun, close matchup considering the win that Massillon, Washington just came off of St. Ed's against. This is going to be 2 really good football teams battling out, and it's going to be an exciting atmosphere. I expect it to be a packed house at Paul Brown Tiger Stadium.
Yeah, people forget last year in this matchup, DJ Williams did not play.
Like, there was injuries throughout, and it was tough for Fitch to try to get a run game established.
he was coming off of like he was really starting to find his hot streak before that Washington game. Like wasn't the game in the Hall of Fame Stadium he scored like 3 touchdowns against Canton McKinley.
And if I'm not
So
mistaken, I think Jamel James was injured all of last year as well, so they didn't have either back, I believe, in that game.
So, now Fitch, relatively healthy, right? They don't have too many injuries on that roster that I know of, at least. The defense has been spectacular this season for Fitch. They have D1 defenders all over the place. I think I would be surprised if it got into the 30s. I don't know how you feel about it. I think like a 27, 24, 20, 28, 21 that kind of game would be probably a good representation of both these teams and the defenses they bring to the table.
I think this is going to be one of those low scoring games, but if it's one of those where if Fitch is able to put points up, I would be surprised if they can get it to the 40s as well, considering Masslin's defense as well. I think this is a case though where if Fitch wins convincingly, then I'm firmly convinced like number 1 power rankings. Like I have no doubt in my mind then that they should be if they can get a win in this one. I think even a win should be enough, but I think if they get it in a convincing fashion, this is going to be an interesting week for the power rankings, considering who's below them as well.
Let's also remember that Fitch wins last year if they didn't turn the ball over as much as they did, and that's completely a them mistake. Not like it wasn't like huge plays by Maslin Washington that like I can't believe they just turned the ball over because the kid made a one-handed tip interception. It wasn't. It was just mistakes by Fitch, the fumbling the ball in a throw you shouldn't make, things like that.
Yeah.
Clean those up and you probably win that game. So you take away the unforced turnovers, then you probably beat Maslin Washington.
Defensive stats last year for Maslin, they had 5 sacks, an interception, and a blocked field goal against Austintown last year defensively too. And all those things can be game changers for sure.
Right. And sacking Devin Sherwood last year was not easy.
No,
so
and we have 5 of them too.
Game. They are a disciplined defensive line. They stay in their gaps. They keep contained. They don't give you a lane out of the pocket when they rush you. So Deshaun Vaughn Jr., I think the key to his success tonight is going to be staying inside the pocket, because I think Maslin Washington wants you to try to flush, and because they're so disciplined in their gaps and their lanes on their pass rush, they're going to swallow you up if you kind of get a little bit crazy feet. So hold your water, stay in the pocket, make a good throw. And of course, Fitch just wants to get the running game going, so they don't have to put a lot on Deshaun Vaughn's and Devon John's shoulders.
And for Deshaun Vaughn too, the big thing is with him, he can run if needed, and that's the biggest thing. As long as Maslin knows that there's that threat too, he can always still take off and make that running play if needed. It's going to be interesting to see how Maslin attacks on this offensive line, because not too many people have been able to crack this O-line for Fitch either. It's been really good and really solid the first 5 weeks.
You know what I always thought was a great way to slow down a pass rush with a running quarterback is those good old quarterback design draws.
Mm-hmm.
You take them back, they're going to pass, and then boom, they hit you right up the middle for a draw.
And if you have both DJ Williams and Jamel James, the beautiful thing about both those guys is they're not bad blockers either. They are very good and very capable blockers as well. So when you can run a triple option almost and have both of them in as well, you can definitely fake with
imagine if Fitch came out in a wing tee.
You imagine? And I wouldn't be surprised with Coach Parker's mindset and what he can do with that. He can definitely play around with that offense.
Start running like the A back and the 2B backs and the quarterback and the legitimate triple.
Could you imagine if you change up a package look like that after going spread offense like Fitch has done? I mean, it would be a different look.
Blow Maslin Washington's mind, because that's not on film at all for Fitch. They came out in a formation that was like wishbone.
The beautiful, they can run it though. Like with just Deshaun, Jamel, and DJ, you can definitely run a triple option if you wanted to. Yeah, it's always dangerous. I mean, not that Fitch would too.
I hope Parker's listening and going, yeah.
Hey, I've seen so many things the first quarter of Fitch games where it's just like rabbit out of the hat, like magic tricks. Yeah, like Coach Parker is just the El Mago of coaches because he just
El
draws up.
Mago. Oh, you're bringing out the Spanish.
He's
It is Hispanic Heritage Month, so way to go.
he is the magician on those sidelines as far as
El
calling up
Mago.
plays.
I like it.
It'll be a fun one. Good matchup tonight.
Before we move on, Chris Sigler reminding us that Carrollton's only loss is to Garraway, who's a really good Division 5.
Garraway's a pretty damn good team.
They were a team that gave South Range a run for their money last year in the playoffs before South Range moved on to go play Kirtland. So Garraway is no loss to turn your nose up at for Carrollton.
The Pirates, yeah, they're 5-0 on this season too, and they've also beaten a 4-1 Dalton team as well. So that'll be that's 2 good wins on the season for them.
We move on to the next game on the slate. Boardman's got a tough task coming into Youngstown. I guess you could say Youngstown Boardman. Benedictine comes from Cleveland to take on the Spartans. 7 o'clock is the kickoff time. It'll be Donnie Riccatelli on the call. Boardman with a big win last week. Does it give them enough momentum, though, to hold off a Benedictine team coming in from Cleveland?
Yeah, it's going to be tough because, Benedictine's always one of those teams that they're solid year in and year out. So this is going to be a tough task for Boardman, but you can't say that Boardman hasn't been tested already this year with the teams that they face. And you got to also remember Benedictine too. They've looked good in some games, but they're still looking for their first win. I know they've played teams like Walsh Jesuit, a 5-0 Cleveland Heights team. Buckdale is one that they just lost a close one to last week. But Boardman on the season, man, that game against Maslin Jackson and that game against Cheney, I think Boardman really learned a lot about themselves in back-to-back weeks. Because look at the defense that they've had. Albeit it was against Howland and East, but the defense has looked really good in back-to-back weeks. They've scored 40 in back-to-back weeks, and I don't care who you are, it's going to build confidence. They're going to have a chance to do so against a Benedictine team.
They also held Cheney to 22, which was, not Cheney. They held who they play in the first game of the year. It was like 14.
They held Mooney to 7.
They held Mooney to 7. Their defense looked good. And remember, that Cheney game, the defense for Boardman was kind of holding their own until that third quarter kickoff return for a touchdown swung momentum way back to the Cowboys' side. It was a 7-point game before that. Boardman came out at halftime, scored, and made it, I think, 20-14, 21-14. And then just that kickoff return for a touchdown swooped that pendulum of momentum right to the Cheney side, and Cheney ran away from it from that point. But there, like you said, there have been glimpses of really good football for Boardman, and 2 wins in a row now. And they welcome in a Benedictine team that you get tough schedule, really good football team, but at the end of the day, still looking for their first win.
And this is going to be key this next stretch because Boardman right now is number 16, right on the cusp of that of being out of the playoffs, right? So they're at 16. They got this team 0-5 Benedictine. They got a 1-4 Harding team that they are going to be hosting next week. Very deceiving 1-4 Harding team, albeit. But then they end the season against, right now at least their records wise, 4-1 Dover at home. Then they go 2 Fitch and 2 Canfield to end the season. So very.
What you're saying is these next 3 are must wins.
Like if you can get this win and you can get the win against Harding, you would be sitting at 5-2 with Dover, Fitch, and Canfield remaining on the schedule. And then you got to figure if you're Boardman, 5-2. If you finish 5-5, you have a shot. But 6-4 would look a lot better. But knowing if you would need to get 1 win in the next 3 weeks, I think it's a lot more manageable for Coach Doda and staff.
Yeah, but you definitely don't want to put yourself in a position where you have to win one of those games or you're not getting in the playoffs.
Yeah, but 5-2, I think, would definitely set Boardman up nicely as well. But you got to remember, Warren Harding's also going to be fighting for their playoff life because this is the point, too. Once you cross week 5, man, teams start getting antsy. They start looking at those standings too and realizing, all right, this is kind of do or die time now. This is final push to the playoffs.
It's not just that time. By week 5, you have really sharpened yourself. Like know who. Hopefully, if you're doing your job, you know who you are as a football team. You know what your strengths are. You know what your weaknesses are. You've really figured yourself out. You've had 4 or 5 weeks to do it now. So you go into week 6 after 5 weeks of football. The good teams and even the middle teams really know who they are.
Absolutely. I mean, for Joe Idell points too, this is a Division III Benedictine team, and of course Harding's Division II, and Dover is also Division II as well. I think Dover made a jump to Division II. I think they were 3 last year.
And they're a really good team. They have a big test tonight against Canfield. We'll talk about that one a little bit later on in the show. But next we have Homecoming in Liberty as they welcome in the Red Devils of Camel Memorial. Alec Caberna will be on the call. This is a Liberty team that desperately needs a win. It's a Camel team that would really like a win. They already have one win on the season, but both teams would love to just pick up some positive momentum for their program. Liberty was obviously off last week because of that COVID-19 issue with their program. So they're coming back on after 1 week off. And Camel coming off 2 back-to-back really tough losses against really good teams.
Yeah, and for Camel right now, they really are looking for a win. Like you said, this is a chance for them to go 2-4 in the season. Chance for Liberty to get their first win, like you said, in front of a homecoming crowd as well. So for the Leopards, they have a chance to get first win of the season in front of a raucous crowd, and that'll be a fun opportunity to see. But for Camel on the other side, 2-4 still puts you in a position to where you can get some wins and get yourself, maybe you could sneak yourself into a spot, but you're going to need
2-4 after 5 weeks. That doesn't make sense.
No, they would be 2-4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was like, wait, I'm doing the math in my head.
Yeah. If you win this week, you go to 2-4.
Okay, I see what you were saying. Okay, trying to go 2-4. Okay.
Yeah, trying to get to 2-4, and for Camel,
you were making me nervous. I was like, did Camel win a second game? And
they're at 23, and they're looking to get into 16. So they got some climbing to do, and a win would definitely help that climb a little bit.
It certainly would. It'll be once again homecoming, so it might be a kickoff that's a little bit later than the 7th. Sometimes those homecoming ceremonies go a little bit over, so don't be surprised if kickoff doesn't start right at 7 tonight from Liberty.
For sure.
In Rayan Stadium, they're hosting Cardinal Mooney comes to town. Mooney versus East. This is a matchup that's been going on for a while. Good to see it back on the schedule. Mooney coming off that big win last week against Lutheran. And now they're coming in on the road again. Larry Scragg will be on the call from Rayan Stadium. Mooney can have an opportunity to get their 3rd win of the season.
Mooney, realistically, in all of their games, the only game that they lost by 2 scores was Lindsley, West Virginia, but they were winning for a large part of that game, winning at the half as well, winning in the 3rd quarter. Mooney could realistically be 5-0. They could have easily beaten Cheney in my estimation, and they could have easily beaten Boardman in my estimation. They were right there against both those teams and showed a lot in that. So for me, Mooney has looked like a really, really good team, and I think their record doesn't reflect necessarily how good they are. They're sitting at 13, though, in the Division 5 regions rankings for this Northeast region. And for Mooney, I think this is going to be another matchup, too, where they can get themselves a solid win in the conference, too, against Youngstown East, and get themselves set up at 3-3 for the season, too. And 3-3 after 6 weeks still gives a lot of flexibility to the Cardinals to still climb those rankings and get themselves potentially a home playoff matchup.
Yeah, and we always said if Mooney gets in the playoffs, watch out. But if they also get a home game with that,
tough.
They're
tough. They are tough for sure. And you look at where Mooney's at right now. They would be facing if they're 13, that would be 4. So they would be facing Fairless right now is where they would be matched up. So. Hey, but South Range is 3-2, and you never know. You could see a South Range Mooney matchup in round 1 as well.
That would be. I think that's been something that people have been clamoring for a while. Like I've never seen South Range play Mooney in football.
That would be a great matchup, and it could happen this year. It could. Both teams are talented enough, I think. Obviously South Range, I think, is already pretty much kind of locked themselves into a spot after a 5-0 start. All they would need, I think, is just a couple more wins to guarantee it. But I think they're already a lock. And Mooney, they've looked like they've been good enough that they can solidify a spot in the top 16 as well. So it could be a potential matchup this year.
Yeah, and when you look at strength of schedule in Division 5, I was looking at a graphic last night. I was trying to find it. That's why I was on my phone. I forgot to save it, which I'm really mad about myself. because it had a list of every division and then the top 20 strength of schedule um, teams in the whole state of Ohio in each division. Um, Cardinal Mooney was ranked 5th in Division 5 as of now. It's not the whole season. It's through 5 weeks based on I guess the opponent record and division in this RPI kind of formula that everyone fans of college sports is used to. Mooney was ranked 5th in the state in Division 5 for current strength of schedule. Poland was ranked 3rd in Division 4 actually, and then another team that was Ysn family that was up in the ranks. Orange JFK has the toughest strength of schedule in Division 7.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And you're talking. I know. Chris Siggy's talking about United right now, and that's a perfect example over there in Division 6. United, a 4-1 team that's barely holding on to an 8 spot where they would be hosting the Southeast Pirates, which Ravenna Southeast Pirates, in case you don't know, a pretty solid football program usually year in and year out.
But to United's point, they have a couple more chances this year to make some noise.
For sure. And that Southern game's going to be one case of it too. But to Siggy's point, you got to play who's in front of you in the conference too. And with United and with the EOAC, it's a lot of Division 6, Division 7 teams, not a lot of teams above that too. So that's why that non-conference, those 3 games are so big, and why we see teams like your South Ranges and teams like that schedule really high, try to get those Division 3 teams in the first 3 weeks.
Every win that Crestview gets will boost United even more, too. Mm-hmm. So United is a big Crestview fan for the rest of the season, because I believe Crestview is the biggest team that United played up in Division 5.
I believe so, yeah, and that was a huge win for the Eagles, no doubt.
All right, let's move on to the next game on our slate, which is actually United. Columbiana traveling to Hanoverton. And it will be that man who just left the comment, Chris Ziegler, on the call. How does that work? It's like he knew we were about to talk about this United team that is very good despite the one loss to Valley Christian. Columbiana, they've been competitive in a couple of games. They really actually were shockingly in that Southern game, I think, a lot longer than people expected. Before Southern made a runaway from it about it. What do you do? I mean, the Columbiana goes from Southern to United. That's a tough slate of the schedule, and I think next week they play Valley Christian. Talk about a gauntlet of a stretch in your schedule.
Yeah, Columbiana has a very tough next stretch too. Bob Spade just wants to get a win.
He's like, I just want to get my 200. I'm stuck at 199. Just give me my 200.
But for United, they're gonna have the home crowd behind them as well. And United's schedule really is nice these next few weeks, because they were going to East Palestine before they're home the next 2 weeks before going down to the Wigwam. But I mean, you look at their last 6 games, 4 home games too, and that's the way you want to end the season: 4 home games out of the last 6 for United to try to get themselves in a position to host a playoff game.
Another comment from Chris Ziegler about United.
It is hard too. And to Chris's point, that's a great point. With these teams, when you're facing these blowouts too, and starters have yet to play 4 quarters, we've seen it year in and year out. It's tough on teams when they first have to play 4 quarters of football.
Nothing says that you have to take your starters out. I mean, it's respectful, and you'll probably get talked about at the water cooler if you don't. But it's not a rule.
It's not a rule too, but you also don't want to have injuries too when you're up by like 30 or down by 30. But, I get that as well.
Yeah, I think when you're up by that, and if you choose to leave your starters in, there's opportunity there to work on some stuff that you wouldn't know. Caster's a little bit crazy, a little.
Yeah, we did.
Garfield goes to Champion. This game, I think, a little bit more interesting than people are giving it credit for. Champion's one game they haven't been in, like the one game that they've lost, badly, is Warren JFK in the first week of the season. They lost to Rootstown. I get it. It was a game but they had that game in hand. It slipped away from them late. They crushed Southeast, right? They crushed Southeast. They held on against Newton Falls, and then they won pretty handedly last week. So they're 3-2. They've looked really good. Joey Fell looks really good. He's on pace for another 1,000 season. They've moved Nick Vesey to a different spot in the offense, is giving him a little bit more production. He's having a good year. Champion looks to be rolling a little bit. We talked to Coach Conrad earlier in the week. He likes where they're at right now as a program. I think this is going to be a closer game than people are giving it credit for.
One similarity both these teams have is a loss to JFK on the season. I mean, you go into this one, that's the one a similar opponent that they both have faced, but that one loss for Garfield was a 22-21 loss.
The 2-point conversion, the walk-off the game.
And outside of that, I mean, Lakeview kept it close in a 7-7 affair, but there hasn't been a whole lot of close games against Cardinal, against LeBray, Newton Falls. I mean, it's been all Garfield. They've looked.
See, that Lakeview game, though, that Lakeview game time makes me think that Champion can probably keep it close. I think Lakeview and Champion are pretty comparable when you look at their team and what they both do. Champion and Lakeview, I think, are both defensive-minded teams first. They make a lot of defensive stops when they have to. I think this is going to be a tough game for a Garfield team that when you look on their offensive side, yes, they're still good. They're still going to be physical. They're still going to find ways to score, but they're not like the last year. They could do all of that, and they had explosive potential with Anthony Dema and some other players that graduated. They don't have right as of now. They could change because obviously it's only week 6. I haven't seen that. Oh my gosh, they're going to explode at any given time while they're doing the physical run game stuff too.
Yeah, and I mean, for Champion, I feel like in this game too, because they're 14 in the divisional standings too, in region 17, Division 5. Champion is 14, Garfield is 11. So beyond the fact that this is a big matchup for that, it's also a big matchup in that sense to where these teams want to jump higher. This is how you jump teams, you beat them. But also in the conference-wise, both these teams are undefeated in the conference play as well. So both teams looking to continue that string of being undefeated have a chance to win the gray side of the MVAC, which would be a huge win for Champion too, and a huge step up for them considering that Garfield's been one of the ones considered as a favorite going into the season.
Now, with Brookfield having the season they're having too, you got to think the loser of this game, you would have to expect Brookfield to lose twice for you to win the MVAC, which probably isn't going to happen. So if you win this game, then it just becomes, we just have to beat Brookfield. But if you lose this game, you have to beat Brookfield, and then you have to have someone else beat them too.
Absolutely. And what we're also forgetting for both of these teams as well, Garfield as well as Champion, Crestview's still on the schedule for both of them as well. Right. So Crestview's still a team like that is going to absolutely have something to say about the top of that MVAC.
And I think if this game gets close, I think advantage Champion. They've played in more close games this year. They're used to being in that situation where they have to make plays in the fourth quarter. Garfield's the only close game. Well, okay, Lakeview was close, but they had control of that game in the fourth quarter. They didn't have to go and make clutch plays in the fourth. They just had to kind of not make mistakes, really. They had that game handled. So this is going to be interesting. If it gets into the fourth quarter and it's close, Champion has more experience making those fourth quarter, we need this play to win the game type situations. They did it against Newton Falls. They did it against Rootstown. They had those situations. They missed their opportunities against Rootstown, but they were still there. So they've had a couple of games now on their slate that have been down to the wire. We need these plays right now, and we need to make them. And more experience in that kind of game can give you an advantage if it happens again.
It'll certainly put one of these teams as tops or in the conversation for favorites to win the MVAC this year.
I'm watching to see if Joey Fell continues to be a patient quarterback and take what the defense gives. Because in the past he's been a guy that loves to look for that home run ball, and Garfield's a defense that I think is going to try very, very hard to not give that to him. So he's going to have to take his checkdowns. He's going to have to take those little 5-yard dump offs, those little slants, those little out routes, everything that he can get. He's going to have to nickel and dime Garfield. That'll bring that defense up, and then he can go for the big play. But he's got to be patient. He's got to be a patient quarterback tonight.
Absolutely, he does, and this is going to be interesting for sure to see how Joey Fell plays against one of the conference's best.
A really good Geneva team comes to Orange, 7 o'clock kickoff there. Connor Richardson we'll have the call. By the way, did not give him a shout out, but Alec Hancock's will be in champion for that game between the Flashes and Geneva. So Geneva goes to Orange, and Orange still looking for that big moment. And Geneva does not get any easier for them. Geneva is a very good football team this year.
They are a good football team. They had a big win against Struthers, and they had a big win against Springfield locally, 42-20 against Struthers, 27-6 against Springfield. But they're coming off of a 43-13 loss to Kirtland. Surprise there. And so they're gonna be a little bit angry, a little bit pumped up, and this is gonna be a tough task for Orange, no doubt. Geneva's look good. I know the 440 and goal boys represent Geneva as well too, and they do a good job as well over there. And they know that there's some talent over there in Geneva. So Ashtabula has really showcased that they got some great talent, and the Eagles are no doubt a team that have shown us with games against Springfield and Struthers again that the Eagles could fly away with some.
You look at Ashtabula County, you have Lakeside in there, who's a really good team. You have Geneva, and you have Jefferson.
Yeah, all really solid teams too, in different divisions as well.
So that'll be an interesting game. Geneva comes to town, and 7:00 kickoff there. Hubbard at Jefferson, another really sneakily interesting game. It's not getting the limelight that all some of the other games are. But Hubbard, bounced back after their loss against Poland, bounced back with an overtime win over Struthers. Jefferson bounced back last week, too. They lost to Girard in week 4, came back, went to Niles, and beat the Dragons in week 5. So here in week 6, both these teams looking to not go and trade wins and losses throughout the rest of the season. They want to get back on a win streak. And I think this is interesting because Hubbard's defense has been really good this year. And Jefferson's offense outside of that Girard game has been close to unstoppable.
This is a chance for them to get another big win. And like I was saying, conflicting styles between these two teams. With Hubbard being a Division 4 team as well, they're in the same region as Jefferson. So Hubbard right now sitting down at 13, where Jefferson is at 3. So very different in spots. So, if Hubbard gets this win, they can definitely climb that ladder and get themselves into a nice spot. A lot better spot than they're currently sitting in the playoffs and potentially be able to host a game. But look at that, too. Top of Division 4, Region 13. It goes Girard, West Branch, Jefferson. 1, 2, 3.
3 YSN teams, man.
Woodridge is 4. Then Salem is 5. Edgewood is 6. Beaver Local is 7. And then Canal Fulton Northwest is 8. So 6 YSN teams right now would be hosting a playoff game.
Rock the world.
And then you look at the bottom 8 too. There's even more YSN teams in Poland and Hubbard. So we're all over the spot.
We everywhere. You look at this game, and I think it's very obvious the key to victory for Hubbard, because when you look at it, they haven't scored 30 points yet this season.
No.
So they need to hold this Jefferson team at least under 30 to have, in my opinion, a chance. And Jefferson's been held under 30 once. And it was Girard, who is, like you said, number 1 right now in Division 4. So it's a tough task for Hubbard's defense, but they have to find a way to keep that Jefferson offense in check. And then their offense has to score like they did last week.
Here's the biggest thing, and I feel like no one's talking about, because we're talking about offense, Jefferson's offense, and I get it because Jefferson has a high-flying offense.
Well, I know where you're going with this, because their defense did hold Girard to 21 points.
They've also held every team except for Grand Valley, which they were winning 66+, so there was some points scored late against some non-starters in that Grand Valley game. 27 to Grand Valley. They gave up 14 to Painesville Harvey, 14 to 4-1 Edgewood team, 14 to Niles, and 21 to Girard. It's a good defensive team.
So they haven't given up more than 28 points once, and Hubbard hasn't scored more than 28 points.
Yeah, except for East. Hubbard scored against Youngstown East 28 points in week 1. They haven't scored above 21 since that point.
No, they scored 28 against Struthers, right? Oh, it was 21-14, wasn't it?
Yeah. So,
right, so they've scored 28 once.
On its head. You talked about Hubbard's defense, Jefferson's offense. I'm looking the other way. I'm looking Jefferson's defense against Hubbard's offense in this one, because Hubbard's offense, I'm curious to see how they're going to be able to score against the Jefferson's defense that's looked really good. And if Jefferson can keep Hubbard around 20 or under 20, it's going to be a win for Jefferson. If you can hold Hubbard, I think Jefferson, I think if Jefferson could hold Hubbard to 14, 17, Jefferson has a chance with that offense. That's how they're playing
Are
at
you
least.
willing to make a bold statement to Jefferson fans?
I
That
don't know.
they will you guarantee a win if they hold Hubbard under 20 points?
Are you
Are you
guaranteeing?
confident in saying that? Because
I'll
I've already
guarantee.
said one.
No, I'm saying I'll guarantee it. If you're gonna guarantee, what did you say about Hubbard?
Yeah, I've already planted my flag there. If Rockland Batura
Or not,
does not get 100 points, 100 yards,
no.
Husky will not win the game.
'Cause there's not as many Skittles on the line as far as that bet's being placed. I'm talking about this one because you made a bold statement about Hubbard's defense playing Jefferson's offense. That if they hold Jefferson's offense under 30, Hubbard wins the game.
All
So
right.
if you making the bold statement, Hubbard holds Jefferson's offense under 30, they win the game. Because I'm making the statement that if you're doing that, I'll say if Jefferson holds Hubbard to under 20 points of offense,
Jefferson wins. All right, let's do it.
All right, we'll make those bold statements then.
Let's
All
come
right.
back on Monday and see how that all unfolds.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay, sounds good to me. You
All
can't
right.
get away with the Rockland Batura one because, like, when is he not going to get 100 yards? Like,
There has what team? I think Salem held them to like 32 yards.
it's like rolling a 10-sided die and asking for it to roll on 3.
It's like rolling the Dungeons and Dragons dice and hoping that you get a 24 to beat.
Yeah, like it just doesn't
Dragon.
happen often. It's not a common occurrence.
You go to the next game on the slate. It's another NE8 matchup. Lakeview at Struthers. Lakeview coming off their first NE8 loss last week, and they just kind of got taken to the woodshed by Gerard. Gerard kind of said, Lakeview, you're not there yet, right? You're not there yet. But Lakeview has an opportunity to come and beat a team that is deceivingly a one-win team. But you look at the losses they've suffered. It's heartbreaker after heartbreaker, and they've been a very competitive. Maybe, I know a lot of people say Crestview, but maybe Struthers might be the best one-win team in the area. Who knows?
They very well could be. And you look at where Struthers is right now in the Region 13 standing. Struthers is still at 21, so there's still time and there's still room to where Struthers can get themselves in the top 16. Still a very good possibility. They need to get some wins, though. I mean, they've suffered 2 overtime losses. They've lost by less than or by 10 points or less than in the last 3 weeks, and it's been tough going for Struthers. But this is a chance to get a win against a Lakeview team that's very much improved, sitting at 3-2 on the season. And for Struthers to try to get themselves in position to make a run for the playoffs, they need this win tonight. As for Lakeview, though, being 3-2 right now, Lakeview is sitting at 16 in Division 5, Region 17. So Lakeview has a playoff berth right now at 16 that they're holding on to at least. But if they lose this game, you got to figure they might drop out of that 16 spot. Very likely that they will. So Struthers is playing to get into the playoffs. Lakeview's playing to stay in the playoffs.
Stay in the playoffs, yeah.
Good matchup tonight.
I think so. I think when I watch this game, I'm looking at the running backs. I'm looking at Nolan Toth, and I'm looking at Tyler Sanchez. Who's going to win that matchup?
It definitely has been a running game for both of these teams, too, and it's a cat versus dogs battle, too.
And cats and dogs.
We always love the cat and dog battles, right? And I mean, Struthers has looked good, and I think Struthers is one of those teams that you can't say they're the underdog, right? But going into it, but they definitely seem like record-wise they are, but I wouldn't call them that going into this. I think team-wise, talent-wise, they're a lot more even.
I'd be interested to do like a Ysn poll and to see who our announcers think is the favorite in this game. Not necessarily because sometimes you don't pick the favorite.
Yeah.
So not necessarily who you're gonna pick, but like who do you think is the favorite in this game? Who has the on paper edge? Because some people would just say Lakeview because of the record now they've looked this season, but some people would look at Struthers and be like, they lost to South Range by 10. They lost a good Hubbard defense in overtime. And they lost to Streetsboro in overtime. Like, they're a good team. Lakeview still hasn't proven themselves in the NE8 really yet. So the Struthers would be the favorite, even though they're sitting at 1-4. It's an interesting game. I don't think the spread. We don't bet on high school football, but the quote unquote spread or the I'll use a different word to stay away from the betting world. the gap between these two teams. I don't think it's very big, whichever way you want to say who's the favorite. But I think, Struthers being at home might be a big advantage.
It definitely could be for Struthers, and they want to win in the worst way right now. So for the Wildcats, they're looking to get that win in front of the home crowd too. But Bulldogs 4-2 would be a heck of a way to start the first 6 weeks of the season.
Springfield finally got their first win of the season last week, as I almost said last year. Last week, as they knocked off undefeated Middle Ridge, they will now host McDonald in another MVAC matchup. Was that win exactly what Springfield needed to make a run the rest of the season?
It could have been. I definitely think it could be. But the thing with wins is it's easier to get one win right than to start stacking them and to start putting them together. It's easy to do everything right for one game to put together a win.
Well, yeah, because here's the news flash in case people don't know. Winning football games is hard.
Yeah. We say it all the time too, but so many things need to go right, and we've seen that in so many cases too. We've seen 4 seconds change the outcome of a ball game, and
That's been their motto since the United game. 4
but
seconds.
I think for Springfield, you got Lowville out of the way. You played them close, tough one. Lowville got the better of you this year, but you got to win against the other undefeated team in the conference and Mineral Ridge the same week that the Lowville Rockets beat the other undefeated team in the conference. And
so you single-handedly propelled Lowville the first place.
And if you're if you're in Springfield shoes, you look at how close you played and how well you played against Lowville, and you see what they did against Jackson Milton. And I feel like there's a lot more confidence going into that Jackson Milton game than all of a sudden. And then really all the other teams outside of maybe them and Waterloo too has kind of raised some questions. They got that big win against Western Reserve now. So we got to see
about them. And I wouldn't even forget about Western Reserve at this point.
Yeah.
Because you look at them and the losses they've had. We talk about
heartbreakers too.
Like Western Reserve, they've been in every game, and they're sitting there like, what in the world do we have to do to come out on top?
Yeah, it's tough. It's
to sacrifice a goat before the game or something.
There's going to be some tough games ahead for Springfield, but they definitely got 2 of the toughest in the conference, I think, out of the way already. So it definitely is a chance for Springfield to go on a run now. And most importantly, I think for Coach Guerrero now to have that foundational brick laid down of our first win. Now we can build off of it, right? Now you can start getting kids to buy in a little bit easier. Now we beat a good football team. You can see that what we're doing pays off. What we're doing works. We just got to stick with the process.
And if you're Springfield, you have to win games against teams that you're just on paper better than, and that's what they have going tonight. I know McDonald.
Get to it, yeah. You got to win those games.
You got to win this game. You cannot drop a game against a team that you should beat. You can't afford that. So we'll see what the Tigers bring to the table. It will be Jamie Thompson going to the Tigers Den on the call, 7:00 kickoff there. I can't. I don't want it to be disrespectful to Minerva, but I don't know what to say about this game. Minerva West Branch, other than like West Branch is really good, and Minerva is just a program that is on the struggle bus right now.
Yeah, West Branch is definitely heavy favorites, and hopefully you see Minerva, like we say, make them earn it. Even if there is a talent gap, make them earn everything that they're gonna get tonight, and that's all you can do on a football field. And for West Branch too, still find things to execute, and hey, get some guys some playing time too that maybe need a little bit more experience. You can use some of that varsity time before a tournament, because you can never have enough depth that is varsity starter ready.
I'll just say this and leave it here. Minerva, they haven't won a game in a year, but they still play the games. So they're manning up their plan. They know they're going to probably get smacked by West Branch. They're not swirling out of it. So
no.
Minerva, and I'll leave that there, and we'll go on to the next game. 7:00 kickoff from that one. Michael will have the call from Beloit. Niles at Poland. These NE8 games are all interesting to me, because I feel like these matchups, if they're not the best against the best, then they're teams that are both comparable to each other. And I think Niles and Poland are kind of in the same boat right now. They've looked good at times. They've looked kind of not good at times. And I know Poland dealing with a handful of injuries. They're hurt. Niles has lost a couple in a row. They haven't looked as good as they did in the start of the season. Someone's got to get a win tonight, and someone's got to really build momentum for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I think Poland's looked really good in some matchups too. But I also have said the same thing about Niles. Niles suffering some injuries, so I'm curious of how they're going to bounce back.
Both teams aren't exactly the healthiest in the world.
Yeah. So both teams are looking to bounce back from that, but both teams, like you said, need a win, and it's also going to be big for both teams as far as playoff sake is concerned, because both these teams are fighting for their playoff life as well. You look at Division 4, Region 13, Poland sitting at 12 too, so not necessarily in the best spot, but Niles is at 18. So both these teams not that far apart from each other in standings. Poland wants that win to try to get themselves to continue climbing that ladder. A loss would be pretty bad for Poland. You got to figure they would probably drop a little bit, and Niles trying to get themselves in. They're right on the outside looking in.
And remember, with Poland, they have the third toughest schedule in Division 4 to this point.
Yeah, it's been
across the whole state of Ohio. They are ranked third in strength of schedule.
They know how to put them together over there in Poland. They put together a nice non-conference schedule to complement the NEA
I think the
slate.
Canfield game really helps with that number.
No doubt. Keeping that battle at 224 alive always helps.
We go to the next one. Oak Glen will be at Beaver Local. Mike McKenzie will have the call from East Liverpool, Ohio, where the Beaver Local plays their games. Beaver Local on a serious run right now. They have won a couple of games in a row, and ever since that week 2 game against Salem, Beaver Local has rallied together and put together a couple of wins in a row. They look hot. They look like they're feeling it on all cylinders, and Ty pops back in. Don't know what happened, but let's get Ty back on. Ty, we lost you for a minute.
I don't know. I got the spinning wheel of death. It was low connection, so I just refreshed the page.
But Beaver Local, comes back tonight, and I think another opportunity to get a strong win.
Yeah, Oak Glen, though. Don't forget, this is an Oak Glen team, too, that even though they have just the one win on the season, they're 1-3. That one win came against Toronto, 25-8, and it came last week. And it was an away game for them, too, so they went on the road, beat a very good Toronto team. Held them to 8 points. Yeah, held them to 8 points. So it's a team playing with a lot of momentum, and it's a team that Beaver Local cannot overlook. No doubt Beaver Local is talented enough to beat Oak Glen, but Oak Glen is also talented enough to beat Beaver Local, and I think they proved that last week. So this is going to be, I think, a sneaky good game on the night. And the voice of Mike McKenzie, though, behind the Beavers tonight, it should be a good one for Beaver Local hosting Oak Glen, West Virginia. And hey, what we've been saying about these out-of-state teams that have come into Ohio, when they come into our state, we take care of business. Yeah, we take care of business. So defend home turf tonight, Beaver Local, and let's get a win.
This one is the one tie everyone's looking at. It's the first place in the line in the 8. It's South Range versus Girard. They've both looked really impressive the first 5 weeks of the season. It's in Arrowhead Stadium in Girard. I think it's a two teams that have a really dynamic offense with running backs that can run and a quarterback that can throw it in Skirpak and Bengala. Both teams' defenses have looked exceptional this year. I can't see much area of separation between the two teams. They've both had games where they've looked a little bit off of what they've looked like the rest of the year. I mean, Girard didn't look great in that Jefferson game. They won 21-6, but it was a sloppy football game. And, South Range didn't really look great against Struthers. So they've both even had games where they haven't looked to their standard of excellence. And then they bounced back from those games and they won handily against two teams. So this one's interesting. This one's really interesting. Every year there's one team that comes to try to knock South Range off of their mantle. Last year was Hubbard. It was Poland a couple of years ago. Girard's trying to take their shot.
Does any team really have the recent history, though, like Girard does with that state title under their belt, too?
Remember, Poland came into that I mean, they went to the state semis and they were a block punt away from probably going to the state championship game.
The point I'm trying to get to with Girard, though, is they are a program that has the prestige just outright as well, too. What I'm saying in this one is no doubt that home field advantage is going to help them, too, but Girard doesn't seem like they're intimidated by anybody this year, too. Not that they were ever really intimidated by anyone before, but like this year in particular, like nothing's intimidating them. Nothing has intimidated South Range the last couple years either. So that's what's really making this an intriguing matchup. Both of these teams are coming in thinking full out too, knowing full out we can get in, we can go in and get a win. Like Girard right now feels full out. We can beat South Range. We're at home. We can get this win, take a hold of the NE8. And of course, South Range expects to win because that's what they've done the last couple years. So I think that's what really makes this matchup fun is that the confidence that both these teams are playing with is at an all-time high, and neither of these teams are intimidated by anyone that they face.
Last year in this matchup, Girard was really hurt. They were not a healthy football team. So I think what they've done is they said, let's just take that tape from last year. We can't learn anything from it. There's not much that we can learn because a lot of these guys – we're trying to step up in new positions. We had a lot of injuries on the field. It's going to be a different game than it was last year. I guarantee that. You look at South Range. They've had one scare. I think Girard's going to have to beat South Range at their best. I don't think South Range is going to come into this game and make the unforced, uncharacteristic mistakes that they did in the Struthers game. I think they get one of those in a season, and Dan Yeagley's going to squash it pretty quick. So, I really think if Girard wins, they're going to have to do it against a clean, disciplined South Range team that doesn't make like their own mistakes. Not saying they'll never make a mistake in the game, but I don't think you'll see them make those unforced mistakes that are just mental errors from South Range.
I mean, how big is the line play going to be magnified in this one? I mean, you look at mistakes are obviously magnified. Whoever gets a turnover, right. If either team gets a turnover, it's definitely going to swing.
I'm not going to be the cliche guy and be like, whoever wins the turnover battle will win this game.
Yeah, that's
not true because South Range lost the turnover battle terribly against Struthers and still won by 10. So not always true. But two, it's such a football cliche. Well, whoever wins the line of scrimmage will win. Well, duh.
Yeah. But the line play is definitely going to be magnified in this.
That's like me coming on saying, whoever scores more points will win this game, Ty.
Yeah. The line play is definitely going to get magnified in this one, and that's just because of the backs that you're going to see on both sides. I mean, both these teams establish the running game, and it's such a big part of them opening up their offense for their quarterbacks. And that line play is what's going to help establish that running game, and I think that's what you're going to be looking at. But most importantly, I feel like you look at these teams and how both of these teams play. The turnovers are, when we talk about the turnover battle, in my humble opinion too, I feel like if you make any turnovers against Girard, they're a team that's going to make you pay. Where Struthers, I don't think was ready at that point to make you pay for those turnovers. Where, like I said, turnovers and mistakes, especially late in the game, always get magnified. But I feel like any turnover, even if there's one on either side, you're going to have to make good with it and make it count with points too. If there is turnovers, you got to translate them into points.
Here's something I'm looking at in this game, Ty. Both teams are explosive and can make really, really big plays at the drop of a hat. And usually, a lot of times when a team makes a play like that, the other team gets shell-shocked and they might give up. They might let that one defensive mistake or that one big play turn into 3 or 4 big plays because they kind of lose their focus. I would be shocked if this game had no explosive plays. Like if both these defenses just said, we're not going to let anything happen that's 20 plus yards, right? When those plays happen, what team responds to it better? What team kind of says, next play mentality. We're going to shut them down the next play. I think that's going to be important because you see a lot of teams when South Range gets that explosive play, shut down. So if South Range gets that explosive play, or if Girard gets that explosive play, the next snap, what's it going to look like?
I'm going to put the weight of where I think this game's going to be lying on. I think it's going to be on the second half adjustments. I think it's going to be in the coaching staff. I think it's going to be who makes better second half adjustments and who adjusts better to what the game plan is in the first half. Because, first half, we're throwing everything at the wall. It's even 0-0. We want to break that. We want to get a lead. We want to get in front. Both these teams are going to have that mentality. After a half, too, whether you're even or one team's down, what's the second half adjustments going to look like? How are you going to counteract what they're doing on offense? How are you going to change things up on your own offensive schemes to try to get new looks on defense? That's going to be, I think, the biggest question going into it. And we know that Coach Yeagley is always one of the best, I think, second half adjusters in the game. And Coach Pearson has also proven that he's been one of the best as well. I think over the last few weeks, he's shown that he's really made some good second half adjustments and really kept Girard in front in some games. So I think this is going to be good. These teams seem evenly matched on all sides, and this very well could be NE8 championship on the line here in week 6.
They do seem evenly matched, but I think the corresponding feeling is South Range is the favorites just because it's South Range.
It's theirs until you take it. It's theirs until you take
Right.
it. And if Girard takes it from them, then it's theirs. But
It's
it's South
You
Range.
gotta go and you gotta do the thing, right?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting in Arrowhead. This is because the last 2 years, this is funny. Last 2 years, the games that have been NE8 on the line for South Range have been in South Range, right? They went into South Range against Hubbard last year. 2 years ago, 2 years ago, they were in South Range against Poland when they were both undefeated. That was early in the season. I think that was actually the first league game of that season back in 2020, week 4. So now it's NE8 on the line, or first place in the NE8, not the whole championship. There's still a lot of football to be played, but NE8 first place on the line on the road. Is that a factor? Is Arrowhead Stadium going to be a factor for Girard? We'll have to see. We will have to see. Let's take that time. That's a big game to talk about. We'll give you some time to digest all that we just said. We'll take our second break, pay some bills, be back with the final previews of tonight's games on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
Before the lights come on, before the workday begins, before a long day is ended, or it's time to have fun. It all starts with the people at Joe Dickey Electric. From replacing a light fixture in your home to building a substation for your business, no job is too big or too small. The people of Joe Dickey Electric power them all. Joe Dickey Electric, over 60 years of powering the Mahoning Valley.
Why choose local? Because you live here, work here, learn here, relax here, and celebrate here. 21 WFMJ is our Valley's only locally owned TV station, and our focus is local. Other TV stations don't have that same focus, as their owners are somewhere else. But 21 WFMJ is rooted in the Valley. Local people making decisions that affect your life, right here where you live.
You're looking to your future, preparing for your goals, and they're closer than you think. Because here, success is part of the plan. It's a place where academic and social opportunities are meant to prepare you for life, not just the next 4 years. You'll be equipped to face new challenges and turn hard work into a career. You're ready for your success to take root. And here's where it starts. We are Youngstown State University, and proud.
Hi, this is Tommy Clem, owner of WRS Insurance Solutions.
WRS Insurance Solutions is a local independent agency that specializes in life, Medicare, long-term care, and disability products. Call us at 330-953-3722 or visit us at wrsinsuranceSolutions.com to learn more.
Good luck to all the student athletes in the Valley.
At Greenwood Chevrolet, we offer a worry-free experience for all our customers. From sales to financing and even service, we'll help build your perfect vehicle
and lock in your trade value
while your vehicle is being built.
No worries.
We guarantee financing,
regardless of your situation or credit history. No worries. And when your vehicle needs service,
our award-winning team will get you back on the road.
No worries.
That's what going the extra mile means. Only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Change. This one word can make you break out in a cold sweat. But with change comes wisdom, experience, and understanding. At Myers Family Insurance, we can help make changes in Medicare, insurance, and retirement a positive experience for you and your family. We've gone through changes, like our new office and new faces to help our family of clients too.
For all your Medicare needs, call Myers Family Insurance. Check us out online at myersfamilyins.com or find us on Facebook.
You're not waiting to see what the world has in store for you. It's more about what you have in store for the world. All you need is the opportunity. All you need are the resources of a large university and the advantages of a personalized academic setting where you can experience new worlds in the arts and sciences, business, and education and make them your own. We are where you shape your future. We are Youngstown State University and proud.
Hi, I'm Colin Chupa. And I'm Kelsey Clem from K-Squared Marketing. Our boutique marketing firm specializes in media planning and buying, public relations, event marketing strategies, and strategic sponsorships. We can integrate our services with your existing game plan, or we can be your entire marketing team. Your goals, our game plan. Let's win together. Call K-Squared Marketing at 330-623-2730 or visit ksquared.marketing to learn more.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town. Anthony Hartwig alongside Ty Bartell. We still have football games to get to in tonight's action, and tomorrow we have a couple as well. And we go from South Range Girard, which we talked about just before the break, and we go into another big battle. Warren JFK goes to Mogador. On the call for that one will be Dom O'Brien from Mogador. And man, this is a team that beat JFK last year, right? And they're an undefeated Mogador team this year, I think, if I'm not mistaken as well. Always a perennial powerhouse in the playoffs. They were D5 for a while because I know there are plenty of matchups in the playoffs between Mogador and South Range in the past. So now they're D6, and it's still a very good football team in Mogador that the JFK is going to have to try to find a way to beat tonight on the road. You're muted.
Good catch. Mogador is 4-0 on the season. They're number 2 in Division 6, Region 21, just under Kirtland, and in Division 7, Region 25, JFK is number 1. So these are battle of two powerhouses. Yeah, in their respective.
Let's be honest, Mogador is not going to take that one spot from Kirtland. So
yeah,
unless Kirtland inexplicably loses.
But, I mean, teams like Cuyahoga Heights and Mogador are separated. Mogador's average in their points on Joe Iatel is 7.875. For Cuyahoga Heights, 7.8111. Like, so they're right there. Like, a loss for them and a win for Cuyahoga Heights would definitely flip-flop those two.
And this game kind of magnifies the point that we made a little bit earlier, but Warren JFK, according to, I think it was Mark RPI, which is a guy that does, strength of schedule ratings in the state of Ohio. Warren JFK has the toughest schedule to this point through 5 weeks in the state of Ohio in Division 7. And this kind of, hey, they're going to play the number 2 team in the Division 6 region. They've already played Garrettsville Garfield this year. They've traveled. They've played the teams at, like Delta. They're not afraid of anybody, and they've never been afraid. So,
and that Marlington win, I don't care if it's an 0-5 Marlington team. That's a Division 3. Yeah, they're playing up 4 divisions and getting a win.
That's a Marlington team that can afford to send in, substitutions. They can rotate linemen. They were able to stay fresh all night, and JFK wasn't, and they still won that game pretty handily. Warren JFK did.
Yeah, and still some great games on the slate for JFK. They've already faced some of Division 5's best, too, like you said, in Champion, Delta, and Garfield. So, I mean, JFK is always well prepared by the time playoffs start.
When you look at it, Ty, and this is a revenge game for JFK if you think about it, because Mogador beat them last year. They've already beaten a team this year that they lost to last year. Can they do it again? Can they say, hey? And they went to Garfield too, so they're both on the road.
It's a JFK team that's learned a lot about themselves since last year's slate of games too, and they're looking to make another deep run in the playoffs once this playoffs start. So
you could
they want to
argue,
get as
Ty,
many
that
big wins as they can during the regular season.
you could argue, Ty, that every game that Warren JFK plays is a road game because they even when they're at Fitch or wherever they're able to rent out, still somewhere they have to travel to, they have to take a bus to. It's not their home facility because they don't really have a home facility.
Yeah, they got a practice field, but I mean they make magic happen on that practice field, and they're able.
Mago.
They're able to showcase it on all kinds of fields throughout the area.
Caleb Hadley has had a really good season as a quarterback, and there's bound to be quarterbacks that go under the radar with how many talented quarterbacks we have in the area this year. But man, don't forget about him. Don't forget about JFK's quarterback.
He does a great job, no doubt. And I mean, what he's been able to do this year has been impressive, racking up wins against some of the best.
So JFK trying to hold on to that one spot in Division 7 and a win against Mogador would definitely put a sizable gap between 1 and 2, I have to imagine, in D7. Next game on the slate, we have Warrensville Heights traveling to Howland. David Williams will be on the call there. Howland, a team that needs a win in the worst way.
Yeah, they really do. And Warrensville Heights is not an easy team typically to get wins over. They're a solid program, certainly year in and year out. So Howland's still looking for their first win, and the Tigers might be able to do so tonight, though. And what we've seen from Howland, they've been competitive, and in the games that we have seen them in, there's been certainly some flashes where Howland has had good looks, and there's certain things that they could definitely change up, I think, in the game plan, but I think they've looked good. They look good against Hubbard. They look good against Ravenna. I thought they looked good against Niles in the first week of the season. Last 2 weeks against Boardman and West Branch, they've been good teams. So they've had their tough slates as well. For Warrensville Heights, too, they're also a team that's suffered some tough losses, too. Lost to a Lutheran East team, a 3-2 team, 8-12. Ellett, 14-27. Lost to a Westlake team, 14-24. Opened up with Normandy, a loss, 17-6. So these are two 0-5 Tiger teams going at it, and one Tiger earns their stripes tonight because they're walking out with a win.
Warrensville Heights is a school that we have become familiar with in basketball season because 2 straight years in a row, one of our girls' teams has met Warrensville Heights in the regional games. South Range was able to beat them 2 years ago, and then last year, Warrensville Heights was able to beat Garfield in the regional round of girls basketball. So a school that we are becoming all too familiar with in the YSN family. They're kind of a blue collar inner city school. They work extremely hard. They're disciplined. You had a chance to talk to some people around the area just because, I meet their AD at the basketball game. I try to get a sense of, what their school is kind of like. And they're a hard nosed kind of athletic program. So I expect their football team to carry the same mentality that all their other teams that I've been able to kind of see. That take your lunch pail to work and go and put your nose to the grindstone mentality. So whether they win or not, whether they're good or not, I don't know. But what I do know is they're going to be working extremely hard at their craft. So Howland has a good chance, though, with an 0-5 team to get their first win of the season. As Coach O would say, go Tigers.
My prediction in this one is that a Tigers team is going to get their first win of the season. So you want to stick with your Rockland Matura? Hedging your bets, I'll hedge my bets.
That's terrible. That's not even hedging.
First one of the season.
That's just fraud right there. Is what it is.
Fraud. That's fraud.
That's like you're back in the Price is Right challenge days. That's just fraud. This is straight up fraud.
Let's go, Howland. Though. Let's go.
All right, go Tigers. Go Howland Tigers. You have to be specific. Yeah. Hopefully they can get their first win tonight in Howland. David Williams will be on the call there for that one. Waterloo at Lowville. Ty, we talked about this one off the air. Lowville has been great this year, right? Skyrocketing. Everyone's thinking that they are way favored in this game. But don't forget, last year, the same Lowville team, they didn't really lose a lot. They didn't really actually add any star-studded freshmen or anything like that. So the same Lowville team beat Waterloo by 3.
Yeah,
and it's pretty much the same Waterloo team too.
Very.
So these are very similar rosters going at each other, and it went really in Waterloo's favor I think last year Waterloo took that game away and said we won that night, even though they didn't win on the scoreboard. They said we probably played our best game of the season and came up just short against the Lowville team. So could this game be interesting tonight?
Yeah, it was 31-28 a year ago, and that was pretty low scoring considering the kind of high-flying offense that the Rockets do have. And don't forget, technically right now, too, with the win against Sebring and a win against Western Reserve, Waterloo is also undefeated inside the conference right now. 3-2 on the season. So you know that, I mean, if I know anything about Coach DeVries, you know that he's going to have these guys ready. You know he's talking them up in the locker room too. You know he's so proud of the way that they have really turned around after that very devastating loss, I think, to Malvern, where they really could have won that game as well. They could have rattled off 4 straight wins, but they really came out against Sebring, and they really showed up against Western Reserve, and I think surprised some people with that win.
Surprised everybody. You were the only person that picked Waterloo last week.
I think for the Vikings, I think they have that triple option set that they can run to. Jaden Haken can also throw the ball. As Mike DeVries said, he was going to open up that playbook a little bit and throw some different things in there. So this isn't the same Waterloo offense or defense that we've grown accustomed to seeing in recent years. And I think
I'll tell you what,
teams off.
When you run a triple option, it is a great equalifier if you do not have the same amount of talent the other team has, because the triple option can take that talent away from a defense and say, you know, it doesn't matter how talented you are. If you don't play assignment football, you're not beating us, right? If you're not disciplined as a defense, we're going to have a numbers advantage on you. So that's why it's always fun to see, you know, these triple option teams go up against teams that you look on paper, you're like, this guy's more talented, this guy, you know, talent. You're like, but wait a minute, they run a triple option. It really doesn't matter.
And I've been really impressed from Waterloo's defensive side, too. I think defensively they look good. You got to remember, too, they held United to 28 points. That's a pretty good United football team, too. Not many teams are holding them under 30 this season, too. So that's not a solid. And for first week of the season, too, and getting your feet wet, I don't think that was a bad performance at all from the defensive side. It's going to be an
sneaky tie. Lowville is riding high off a win against an undefeated team where Vinny Blown ties the state record. Sneaky.
The biggest thing I've always said in games like this, it's tough. It's always tough to play a team where they have a little bit added motivation, because you know all those boys on Waterloo look at that score from a year ago too, and they're thinking, all right, we were this close. We hung with Lowville the whole way, this close from beating them a season ago. What are the adjustments that we needed to make? What are the things we need to get better at from that point then to this point now to change that score in that game? Not that Lowville doesn't think or hasn't given thought to
Lowville's looking at that game saying, like, what in the heck did we do to be that close to Waterloo? Like,
but I'm just saying, I feel like the thought for Waterloo, the thought of this game was occurring maybe a little bit before Lowville, but no doubt that Lowville is going to go into this one. They're going to be well prepared. Vinny Balone just keeps on keeping on. He keeps topping himself somehow each week, and I don't know how he does it. Through 9 touchdowns the last game too, and he really just made it be known that, okay, there's no question of who's the top in this conference, and he has a chance to do it again against another team that's undefeated in the conference.
And my biggest question is, if this game gets close again, can Waterloo make the game-winning type plays? You know, we've talked about a lot with different teams. Like, when you have that chance to win the game, can you go and make those big-time, prime-time plays that you need to make to win the game?
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the biggest question mark going into this season. But
last year they couldn't. This year they made a lot of plays against Western Reserve, I'll tell you that much. So we'll see. I think don't automatically write this game off as a blowout. No,
I don't think so as well, but we will see, because Lowville has made a lot of teams too look like.
No one thought that a blowout was coming last week, and then Lowville just said, "Nope."
Yeah, they're like, "Yep, it's happening."
It's happening. Wellsville takes their 3-game winning streak into Southern. It'll be DJ Oakley and Richie Giuliano together at the Wigwam for the call there. And I think we've talked about this game a couple of times throughout the week. Wellsville's a team that when you see Isaiah Greathouse have a good game, it opens up everybody else, and that's the key to their offense.
Yeah, and Isaiah Greathouse is definitely something else when he's going, man. He is a touchdown machine for sure. And going into the Wigwam, it's going to be a tough game for Wellsville to win. But if you're able to pull this one off, all of a sudden, you have definitely opened up a ton of eyes inside that EOAC. And everyone now, all of a sudden, I think, has to pay attention to the Tigers.
Southern has had to shake off some rust, I should say, in the beginning of last week. I mean, Columbiana, like we said when we were talking about this Columbiana United game, Columbiana kept it close for a good amount of time last week before Southern was able to run away with it. So don't be surprised if Wellsville comes in and competes in this game.
Absolutely.
7 o'clock kickoff. We got to get to the next one because we are running low on time. 4-4-0 and Gold Boys will be in Lakeside as West Geauga comes to town. The Lakeside Dragons are one of the best teams in that region, Division II, and they look to keep their good season going. There's one loss in the season, I believe, for Lakeside, and actually came against Geneva.
Yeah. Yeah, so chance for Lakeside to keep pace and get themselves a better positioning, too, inside the division.
Can Western Reserve finally pull one off? I don't know. I mean, they've been so close yet so far away this season, and it doesn't get any easier for them as they travel to Mineral Ridge. Jake Silac will have the call there. The Rams have to bounce back from their tough loss against Springfield, and really the first time that offense was held in check all season. So we'll have to see if the Rams can do that and bounce back with a win. Last game on the network tonight is LeBray at Newton Falls. 7 o'clock kickoff there. It'll be CJ Strodes and Noah Doty on the call for that one. Newton Falls run game looking to establish themselves again after a couple of tough losses in a row. LeBray is a good time to do that. Some games that aren't happening, well, they are happening, I should say, that aren't on the network. Wyndham at Southeast, East Liverpool at Notre Dame Cathedral Latin, Sebring at Jackson Milton, and then some games that through no fault of our own, we were just denied access to. Canfield at Dover. Want to let them. We were not allowed in. Dover politely declined our invitation to come. Same thing with Toronto. They politely declined us being there. And then Maslin Perry declined because they have a media team working the game. So you'll be able to watch the Louisville Maslin Perry game with Louis Perry's media team. And I'm sure we'll find a link to that and put it on Louisville's website, Louisville's page on ysnlive.com, so you can still get a link to that game and be able to watch it through Maslin Perry. So those are some games that are happening. Unfortunately, they will not be on the network, but all the other games will. We have the next games on tomorrow that we have to talk about. 2 games tomorrow. Ty Latonia, a struggling program, will travel to Valley Christian at Camel, and that will be Alec Caberna and Matt Morrison on the call there, 7 o'clock kickoff. But then the big one tomorrow, Ursuline at Cheney. Big game. Anthony Romo, Steve Leslie will have the call from Rain Stadium. Cheney made a statement last week by beating Canfield. They have to do it again by beating a very good Ursuline team, both at home, back-to-back home games for the Cowboys.
Yeah, if Cheney does this, man, is there really any question in that division then and who's top dog?
No, and here's what's going to be crazy. If Cheney wins and Fitch wins, who's number 1? Does Cheney jump or does Fitch stay?
I don't know, man. I don't know because those are 2 really big quality wins for both.
And what if Canfield wins too? How much does Canfield go back up if they beat Dover, which is one of the best teams in Division II?
There's a lot of questions to be had too, and a lot of things I'm curious to see how they're going to shake out as far as the season is concerned. And looking at it too, I mean, obviously Valley Christian going to be a heavy favorite in that Latonia game too, so that'll be a good one to have tomorrow night to see the Eagles how they're going to continue rolling. But yeah, Ursuline Cheney battle for SVC too, Steel Valley Conference. Right. So you got to figure winner of this game wins the conference. For Cheney's side, at least they already beat Mooney. You beat Ursuline, then you just have East that stands in front of you. And for Ursuline, they're still going to have to take a matchup, I think, with both East and Mooney. So their first conference game of the season.
Right. So a lot on the line in that game tomorrow night, 7 o'clock kickoff once again. Anthony Romo and Steve Leslie will have the call. We also have 3 volleyball games on the network tomorrow. Ty Obi and Garfield at 11:30 a.m. as Streetsboro comes to town. I'll be in Canfield as they welcome in Talmadge at noon. And then United will have their game on with the school's broadcast. They are hosting Lordstown at 12:30. We also have one boys soccer game on tomorrow as Riverview will travel to Beaver local. Mike McKenzie will be on the call there. So that's our weekend slate. We've went over every football game. Let's count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 games on the network tonight, and then 2 more tomorrow for football, plus 3 volleyball games and a soccer game on tomorrow as well. That's going to be all fun to tune into. Make sure to head over to ysnlive.com/live to tune into those. All for free, by the way. We want to thank our wonderful sponsors for still allowing us to have all regular season games, whether it be volleyball, football, soccer, tennis, field hockey we've had. We've also had boxing. We've had cross country. All of those are brought to you free in the regular season by our wonderful sponsors that we have. We were able to announce a couple of new corporate sponsors this week as Legends Food and Drink, not only the host of the Coach's Corner and Player Profiles from now on for South Range, but also a corporate sponsor at YSN. And Comco has become a corporate sponsor at YSN as well. So we thank them for their continued support of the network. And now we are happy to have a corporate sponsorship with both those lovely people.
Yeah, absolutely. Always love to add on to the growing YSN family.
Us at Running Point, we're always happy that Greenwood Chevrolet decides to sponsor not just YSN, but us and be the presenting sponsor at Running Point. We thank them once again. A couple of weeks ago, they signed another 1-year deal with us. So they're going to be our presenting sponsor for the near future. We thank them for their constant support. And we also want to just take the time before we get out of here to thank our wonderful viewers. You guys have supported us throughout the season. We are on pace to have our best fall sports season as far as viewership that we've ever had. And we couldn't do that without our wonderful viewers and audience members. So thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back, me and Ty, on Monday. It's a 70-hour break. We'll recap all the weekend's action. Maybe get a couple of winning coaches on, maybe a couple of announcers that called big games on as well. Who knows? It's an open door policy at Running Point. You never know who's going to pop in. So we'll be back on Monday with the recap of the weekend. Casual Sports Podcast coming up next from 2 to 3. And then the Power Hour Super Show will be on at 3 o'clock, where you'll not only get more previews of tonight's games, but you'll also get the YSN announcers picks, and you'll get to see who we all think is going to win the games tonight. My picks are in. Ty, are your picks in?
Not yet.
Oh, you better get on it. You got until 3. You got until 3.
Oh,
3
we have
o'clock.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll have to
get on it, Ty. I don't want to have to beat you into a pulp for missing your picks.
Yeah, we'll be all right.
That'll do it for today's episode of Running Point. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, Casual Sports Podcast coming up next from 2 to 3. Power Hour.